I thought I would just start with a quick introduction on yourself, Richard. Hello and welcome to the Empiric Pioneers series, where we're interviewing some of the leading experts and innovators in the field of tech. I'm your host, Josh Ramsey. I'm a recruitment consultant at Empiric, who are a recruitment agency that specialises in technology and transformation. Today, I'm delighted to have with me here Richard Shtolc, who is a Salesforce Industries architect and technical lead. Richard has over 10 years of experience in software development and over 6 within Salesforce Industries. He is one of the main specialists in this domain and someone I've known and worked with for a long time. He's also a speaker, content creator, and mentor within the SFI community. In this interview, we will learn about Richard's journey, his current role, passion and vision for the advancement of Salesforce Industries. And we'll get some practical advice on terms of starting your career and how to advance your career within this field. And also with regards to how it works with working with specialist recruiters. So without further ado, let's welcome Richard and get started.
Thank you, Josh. You're too kind, actually. Some of your words are too kind. I would not consider myself a speaker, but I have participated in some of the live events, particularly in Latvia, and also I did participate in some online events as well. So yeah, this is always good to have and cool to participate, but I would not consider myself a speaker. Another thing, I would say that considering my heavy involvement in studying and even science when I was studying at my computer science university, I would consider that probably you can say that my IT career started for more than 10 years ago, but I actually have started with Salesforce for about 8 years ago, and that was my first proper working experience. So that's one thing. Other than that, about myself, yeah, my name is Richard Shtolc. It is very nice to hear that you consider me as one of the leading experts in Salesforce Industries. I like to think that way. I would never say it about myself, but probably if you look at the stats and dry statistics and all of that stuff, that's probably possible to say about myself, because one thing that I like to brag about, is that I have started working with Salesforce Industries, Vlocity at that time, as one of the first people in Europe. It was, don't want to make it wrong, but it was about 6 years ago already, maybe even more, when there were just couple projects across entire Europe doing Salesforce Vlocity. And there was definitely two of the two of the pathfinders in Europe, and one of those two I have started. So together with some other people. So it is really cool that we made such a long way since then. And at that time, I have just believed that you need to learn some framework in your professional career, not just to jump off the ecosystem system itself, but also it would be useful to know something extra than that. And at that time, it was kind of a risk investment, focusing so much on Vlocity, but it really has paid off. And since then, my dedicated focus was always around Vlocity, and it was always my request, you can say, to work with Vlocity all the time since then. So yeah, I started Salesforce about 8 years ago at Accenture, Latvia. So I originally am from Latvia. Myself being always a technical guy, a hands-on guy in the university, I was doing mathematics. I was a little bit of a fanatic of science, really. I was a big fan of mathematics, all kinds of mathematics, probability theory, discrete, and that higher mathematics, I forgot the term in English, everything. I was very enjoying doing that. And I was even thinking, maybe in the future, I want to be somewhat like a scientist. Maybe I would want to work at the university and be a teacher or something like that. My mind was a bit messy at that time. And of course, I would want, even at that time, to look in the future and know where I will be at this current moment, and I would not change a bit in my journey. So I like where I'm at right now. Yeah, I was saying that I am a technical guy, and I started Salesforce with the doubt, considering that my original idea was to work with Java, probably, and basically programming and coding. I switched to Salesforce right away when I was proposed so at Accenture Latvia, and I never regret since then. Yeah, worked at Accenture for years, and then at one great day, I was approached by one recruiter who is not in the field anymore. It was a lady, and she just told me, "Hey, Mr. Richard, we got an opportunity in Austria. Would you consider relocating and working as a contractor in Austria?" It was very new for me.
Yeah.
And it was 2 months negotiations. And they were really pleasing all my requests, all my queries. I was very happy with that. And I just now understand how much time they spent on me. I was a very hard client probably to get hold of. But it was really a success. I decided to relocate. And since then, I am on my contracting journey. Really, already since the January of 2019, changed a lot of projects, changed some places of work. But yeah, basically here I'm at right now. I would say that we can probably say that this podcast will be focused around Salesforce industries. So what is relevant to know is that under my belt, I have 6 or 7 projects with Vlocity already. So projects fail, so projects succeed, and like I saw other in development long-term transformations. So yeah, that's about my introduction, Josh.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for that, Richard. Obviously, a very good overview in terms of your background, a little bit of your interests, and how your careers went. And yeah, of course, 6, 7 projects and Salesforce Industries. It's so many, considering it is a new technology. Of course, I know well the project you started out in. I know well the project in Austria that you went to as well, and worked with a lot of the people from that project as well. And I know that that was really one of the big ones as well in Europe. So I think it's great insight to give everyone to listen in terms of how your career has went. So where I really wanted to begin in terms of this, and I know we've touched on it a little bit there with your introduction, but in terms of your career before IT, I know you mentioned that you were interested in mathematics and maybe seen yourself going down the science sort of route. But in terms of your career before IT, what made you go into IT, and what were you doing first of all beforehand?
Yeah, so few words about me. I was a problem kid when I was at school. I was probably the worst scholar in my grade and across the other grades as well when I was studying at school. And I mean the beginning school in Latvia, we have 1 to 12 classes, grades in other words. And I would never even knew that I would appear at some university, apply for higher education. I was never thinking into that direction. We never had a lot of money to pay for it. And with my very poor grades in the school, I would never achieve getting some free placement into university. You know, that budget placement. So I was just a usual kid from the streets, you know, having friends, partying, just living a good life, not worrying about the future, about the money, income, and stuff like that. After I finished my school, there were like 2 years have passed before I started to study, or maybe even 3. And during those 2-3 years, I have realized that I need to do something with my life to really secure my future. And we with my mother got at some point like a gift from a family member for, it wasn't really a gift, but we got some free money it was 3,000 euros. And one of the decisions was that we will apply myself to the university. And since I was always loving video games, and I was always the guy sitting in front of a computer, literally half of my life, probably if I'm not with the friends, I was with the computer, playing, gaming, doing internet, YouTube, whatever. I knew that it would be probably great to work in front of the computer as well, but I never knew what is programming. I never knew that programming is about writing a logical, structured codes and algorithms. So I applied for computer science in the university, and it was a hardcore university in Latvia. It was really kind of old school with great professors, Transport and Telecommunication Institute in Latvia. And first months I was very overwhelmed. I thought that I would not be able to make it. And since then, considering how much effort I have involved into trying to make up for everything that was going on there, to make up for exams, to try to pass everything that I had to, I became that fan of a science, of programming, and of mathematics. I really kind of transformed. Programming was always easy for me. It was really easy. I had the best grades, only the best. Like 10 was the top mark, and I was having 10s in programming. But mathematics was another story, because you can imagine, in order to understand and succeed in mathematics in university, you probably at least need to know an elementary course from the school. And I never knew it and never studied it. So I had to learn elementary mathematics on my own, just through the books. That's what I did. And after that, I just became successful. So coming back to your question, it's like my background was nothing like this. It was nowhere near the science or programming or mathematics or IT type of a career, or brain type of a career, right? Like where you need to think and do the intelligence work. I was working at the construction site for many years during my school, starting from 13 years old. It was even illegal. I had to lie to my boss that I'm 14 years old. I had to fake some documents that I'm a 14-year-old just to be able to work. And I was already a big kid when I was 13. I was looking all right. I was looking like I can handle the work at the construction site, and that's what I was doing at the free holidays during school. So you can imagine it's like not even knowing what is learning or studying or hard intelligence work. How could I become a successful scholar at the university? So really, my background, like a usual street kid, partying, alcohol, smoking, all that stuff, friends. And at some point, I just realized probably I need to switch something in my life. Really, it sounds like a cliche, right? But still, that's what happened. And I even remember since then that some of my friends were saying, "No, you will not make it. You will fail. It's bullshit, Richard." So I have proven them wrong. I never said it to them, but yeah, that is what happened. That is my background. And I do believe that being a socially developed person from my early life with my background, it certainly helps being a good and successful consultant, right? So that's about my background before IT.
Fantastic. I think that's obviously a very good story. Not your average way into IT for someone who has rose up really so quickly and got into architecture and worked all of these major projects. To have the background that you have, which I think is really inspiring for a lot of people, that maybe you weren't on the right path, as you said, and then you changed your life around, and now look at where you are already, which is fantastic. So that's absolutely great.
Thank you, Josh. You're too kind for me as always. But one thing to mention as well is that I have applied to university and we had some money for it to cover beginning of the studies. But what was my probably best and greatest achievement in my life at that moment is that in the end of the first year at university, I got the grant from Moscow's major for the best students in Baltic countries, and they started to pay for my studies. So it was the greatest achievement that I had in my life at that moment.
Fantastic. Yeah, that is a great achievement, of course, and to get them to put you through the rest of your university studies by doing so well is obviously testament to yourself in that scenario. So that's great. The next part that I really wanted to get into is I know the project that you started on within Salesforce Industries, but I also know that maybe for around 2 years you were working more on the core platform of Salesforce. So how did you end up going into Salesforce Industries? Did they tell you were going on the project, or was it something that you were, I know of the time it was Vlocity, of course, but was it something that you were very keen to do?
No, I never knew what is that. There was no much choice when I was just like a junior developer in Accenture Latvia. There was no much choice of what can I do, but being at one project for about a year, proving myself good there. Obviously, in such big companies as Accenture, there is always resource management. So they understood that, all right, they placed me as a junior and they see that I'm doing good there. So they decided to swap me with someone else to put as a junior to that project and get myself as a more experienced middle level developer into the next project. And the next project was that well-known Finnish telco, which started implementing Vlocity. And it literally started from the scratch. I even remember configuring objects like account and opportunity. So you can understand that it is literally the beginning of a project. And it was when we started Vlocity, me and a couple other people across Accenture Latvia. And there was myself and Artyom Slivenskis, and we became a fence, a totally dedicated and logically, how to say that word in English? Logically, basically, we have our own explanations about why we want to do Vlocity and why we want to take the risk that probably in the future will succeed. So we were placed into 5-day training to learn OmniScripts and Vlocity administration. So after we have passed that on-site training, I remember it took us 1 week to make one single OmniScript work in the environment. So basically, since then, it has all started. We started to speak a lot about Vlocity, and even across Accenture Latvia, we, together with our supervisors, initiated kind of a separation between your Salesforce department and Salesforce Vlocity department. So we were trying to promote Vlocity across Accenture Latvia as much as we can. There were not a lot of fans of it because people didn't believe in that, and that was fine, because why would you? Because it was also new in the Europe. Why would you even know that it can grow into something like what we have right now? But at that moment, we believed in that, and we started promoting it, and we became good at it. And we understood a lot about Vlocity. And one of the most important things that we started to understand at that time is that you can build successful Vlocity projects if you have enough knowledge and experience on Vlocity. Fortunately, right now, entire world have a lot of knowledge on Vlocity, but at that moment, it was a struggle to get someone with the knowledge. So literally, the most experienced people were the people who have passed 5 days training. So that's how it happened. And since then, I can't say that I really liked Vlocity itself, but I can say that I liked the idea of learning and knowing Vlocity and working with it. So that's how I started it. And since that moment, from the very first project, I never abandoned it, even though I was proposed other places without Vlocity, which might have been probably better at that moment. I was always requesting that I want to continue with Vlocity. So that's how it is. And at that moment, it's just another point to brag, is that I have hands-on knowledge and expertise on all the major areas of Vlocity. And we can probably start saying SFI, because right now that's how they prefer them to be called. It's being Omni Studio, CPQ, order management, EPC, a little bit of CLM, enterprise sales management, and basically all kinds of data models. So I have hands-on on all that stuff. In some of those, which are specifically industry-based and industry-specific, like CPQ, order management, and EPC, I do consider myself a good expert. At least that's what I want to think of myself. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely. Of course, I've not worked with you for quite a long time now, and we've known each other for a long time, and the amount of variety of projects and all the different components that you've worked on within Vlocity or Salesforce Industries now, is certainly very impressive and amongst the top specialists within the region. So that's why it's great to speak to you and talk through the way things are going within SFI, what the future is for it, and yeah, I think it will be a great listen to all the people. So, in terms of another thing that I thought would be nice to touch on, from your side, I know the reason that you went into freelancing. You got the opportunity to move to Austria, but
Yeah.
what do you think is the best part about becoming a freelancer in comparison to being a permanent employee?
Yeah, probably most commonly known and expected is money. Of course, we can never throw it away. That point. But other than that, is your flexibility. If you are a person without too many responsibilities in your real life outside of work, I think becoming and being a contractor is a very great benefit for your career and your overall part of this IT world, because it allows you so much. It allows you to really be flexible in terms of where you work and how you work. It gives you, of course, a lot more expectations and responsibilities from yourself. It places it on you, but it also allows you to be more flexible and allow you to make your own decision in what are you doing, when, and how long do you want to do that. Really, it puts too many things on you to handle on your own, like your taxes, your social security and that stuff, even your holidays, because they are not nowhere, they are never official, but still, since I am a person without too much responsibilities outside of work, I think the best place where I can be right now in the IT is contracting.
Yeah.
And especially if you are capable of doing that, and if you can offer a good expertise to stand out amongst other people, it is a very good place to be in. And Salesforce and SFI fortunately do allow us to do that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And yeah, of course, I think it's something that I often speak to people, of course, from my side that have maybe been permanent employees and weren't sure about going into sales freelancing. So I think it's always really good to discuss that side of things and how you made your journey and what you like about that. So yeah, that's fantastic. And another part maybe that goes on to a side with that is in terms of your experience with working with specialist recruiters, like myself within the Salesforce industry side of things, what advantages do you think that you have found in working with specialist recruiters?
Oh, there is advantage which most people probably do not realize, is that recruiters can take all the work and management and operations lifted from your shoulders. You literally may not be worried of anything than just making decisions based on the options that you are provided from your recruiter. Josh is such a recruiter, so you know, I like working with you. We work for a long time and we know each other even for more than that.
Yeah.
But for whoever is watching, if you would be able to find your recruiter who will be able to lift any burden of trying to find work or projects or manage anything, even your money, salary and raises and stuff like that, and even potentially taxes, and who would be your accountant, it is a great place to be in, because you guys do not realize, probably some of the people who are watching, is that when you are an internal employee or you're a usual IT worker for some company, everything is on you. You found that place through somewhat of searching, or maybe you was approached by, but still it is up on you to handle it further up until the moment of actual employment. But when you work with a recruiter, you can just tell him one thing: hey, I'm this and that, this is my CV, my plans are this and that, I am allowed to work in Europe or maybe in some other place of world. Let's work together, see what you can find for me. And then you can just wait for offers to appear. And I really think that this is great. So that I know that if something happens with the project, with the contractor in the project, that I'm in the good hands of other person who has a lot more and wider knowledge and connections across entire SFI space and hiring space than I do. So it is always a benefit if you have a recruiter. And even better than that, you don't even need to pay him anything for it. They will do it. If you're great, if you have a good CV and track record,
Yeah,
it will be done for you.
yeah, definitely. I think it's a great sentiment. And as you mentioned, specialist recruiters will be spending all day talking to the key people, stakeholders within their industry. So yeah, it certainly can be always a very advantageous partnership for both sides. And I think it's always great to hear that, and that has been your experience as well, of
Yeah,
course.
it certainly was with everyone. I was lucky having very good recruiters, and was it just me or all of them are that good? But I was lucky to always had and keep the good impression of every recruiter who I worked with. I treat them as friends or a very close
Yeah.
people to myself. I'm always open. They are also with me. And it was always great. That's why I want to stay here in this space as much as I can, being a contractor.
Yeah, of course, fantastic. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And yeah, the relationships that you build up with people you work with for a long time is certainly great. And from my side, it's one of the things that I enjoy most about my job as well. Is building those relationships and maintaining them as well. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And in terms of another thing that I thought would be really nice to ask is in terms of what you love specifically about the role that you play within the ecosystem. So, in terms of Salesforce Industries specifically, what
Yeah.
aspects of your role excite you the most, and why?
So you already understood that I love Salesforce Industries, and I'm grateful for what it has provided to me and all the other people.
Mhm.
I'm very happy that it was acquired by Salesforce, and I still remember how me and my friend Artyom Zlivenskis were happy and theoretically and hypothetically discussing that at Accenture Latvia, what would happen next once this acquisition happened. So that was a great contribution into success of Vlocity itself. But on my own, personally, being originally a developer, converted into a consultant, which was still a developer, but you can say like a senior developer, right?
Mhm.
Converted without my will to an architect, because shout out to one very great person, Craig Hutchison from Capgemini.
Yeah.
He decided that I can fulfill that role when I was working at Capgemini, and that's what happened. That was my first experience with being an architect. That's when I became an architect, and it was unexpected. It wasn't something that I was looking forward to, because I knew that eventually my career will lead me into some place, into either management or architecture. And I was thinking, probably I wouldn't want to be an architect in the future, so probably I would want to be like something like a manager, because I do understand process well, and I can manage and communicate also quite well. Those are quite an important aspects of being a good manager. And I literally remember that I was thinking that probably in the future I would like to be something like a technical scrum master, or maybe a product owner or something like that.
Mhm.
But as I became an architect, I did understand benefits of being in that place. And since then, I really like it. I really like that role, but I'd never emphasize on the fact that I am an architect. It's not something that you can say really with a pride, because anyone can become an architect if you're good and if you love what you're doing and if you spend good amount of effort and proven track record into that, right? But it is good when you're a person who can be reliable and who can be self-sufficient enough just by hearing some incoming queries and words and directions, being able to fulfill them into life, into project, and basically being able to fulfill the vision into actual development processes, whether it is leading a team, whether it is designing solution, or overall contributing into decisions, architecture, and stuff like that. I do like this place. I do like that you can feel powerful and influencing, right, on what project is doing, and especially when you are confident in your influence, because whatever you do, if it's based on a real hands-on experience and knowledge on the mistakes that you have done, that you saw in the other projects in the past, I have certainly done a lot of mistakes, most definitely, but you learn based on that. And next time when you see a potential risk place or risk point, you will always not make that mistake again if you already had it. So I don't know, it's like real theoretical talk, but it's a good place to be in. But I'm still not sure that that will be always the case for myself. And I cannot be confident, or cannot even say that I see myself in 5 years and 10 years being at the same place, at the same role, like being an architect.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. And I think it's a really good insight in terms of someone working within your project, basically saying that they felt like you could do it and pushing you
Yeah.
into that role. It wasn't something that you were even pushing for yourself.
Yeah, it was a lot of trust and trust on me, excitement from my side, and I was very worried as well. Like, can I do that?
Yeah.
Can I at least like really try and succeed, or somewhat not fail?
Yeah.
What was in my mind.
Exactly. And then years later, you're still doing it and
Yeah,
progressing even
yeah.
further, which is testament to yourself again. And I think another good lesson for a lot of people out there.
Yeah. By the way, Josh, sorry to interrupt. Another very important thing of being an architect,
Mhm.
and what I think is being a successful architect, is to maintain good level of hands-on action still. So I always want to still know and be aware of everything that's going on in the system on the low-level details. I do want to be able to design low-level solutions as well as high-level, and it's like I do believe that hands-on knowledge makes you better architect, because we know a lot of examples of the mature solution architects who can just handle the role just based on their overall IT experience without
Yeah.
too much of hands-on involvement. Those are also great people, but certainly there is other direction where you benefit a lot from having a hands-on and technical experience.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's another great point as well, of course. And maybe more into taking it back a little bit, instead of for the architectural side of things. One thing I felt would be nice to discuss is tips that you may have for people just starting out. And that's either just starting out within Salesforce in general or IT, that maybe would listen to this and think that they would want to follow a similar career path to yourself. So in the initial stages, what importance do you place on someone starting out getting certifications, or would you recommend them gaining more project experience first?
Oh, I would recommend both. If you're starting out, certifications are very important, because if you while you do not have proven track record of your project experience, probably the first thing that your employers, whether it's a company-based potential clients when you work for a vendor or consultancy company, or whether it's your real employers, first thing that they will look at will be your certificates and your knowledge, of course. Second thing is CV, your other skills, your trailhead profile and stuff like that. I do think that certifications are very important. And whenever I have friends who are starting out in Salesforce, first thing that I will do, I will recommend them pass associate, probably administrator, app builder, and potentially developer one. Yeah, so those are very important. But then once you do have at least some of those, or once you do have an actual employment, which probably might be the hardest part of your IT career to begin. It's probably the hardest point. It's a lot of struggle to begin in this time. But once you begin, you can just start acquiring your experience, which will then play out as top importance. Your experience will then dictate who you are, what you can demand, and how demanded you will be. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, without a doubt. And another point on that, I felt maybe good for people who are really wanting to learn up more on Salesforce Industries is, did you have any mentors, or is there anyone out there within the LinkedIn community or just in Salesforce community in general that you would say would be worth to go and reach out to or speak to about this sort of stuff?
Great question. I never had a single mentor in my life. I had online mentors, like who never even knew myself. People on YouTube or people who were inspiring me, not necessarily IT, but I had that kind of mentorship. So I was trying to direct myself on my own, always doing something that I consider in my life is most beneficial at a certain point. So unfortunately, I never had an IT mentor, but I was lucky. No, not very lucky, because I had a gap between my university and actual work. So I wasn't that lucky, but when I started IT career, I was able to direct myself into all the best decisions and places, and basically my path and journey was very smooth and nice. But I did mentor a lot of people, even my friends from real life, from outside of work, from outside of even university, just from the streets, the people who I knew. I directed so many people into IT and learning IT, and even probably more into Salesforce, or during some of the people Salesforce junior days. That I think I do understand how important that might be, that you have a person who will tell you to focus on this, learn that, contact those people, create your LinkedIn profile and make it your priority and stuff like that. So having a mentor is very important. Probably you're able to find a mentor either from your life, if you have any relatives or common people who are working in IT already. They will always be able to recommend you something and guide you. Or then when you start working somewhere, probably as a usual junior employee at some company, most companies do provide you the mentorship, and you should benefit and try to benefit from that as much as you can, because that is really useful. And yeah, I just always have some people to mentor, and some people from the past who I have tried to guide. And it happened so much that people just approach me, people who I knew in my life, like, hey, Richard, just tell me about IT, how to get there, what can I do, what courses should I take? Like, is it enough to take 2 months course to start working or something like that? It always happens.
Yeah, of course. And
it is important. It's very useful and helpful if you can find someone. If you cannot, then rely on yourself. It's not bad. If you can make your good own decisions, then it's all good as well.
Definitely. I think there's always different ways of reaching that level. But of course, it's always nice to have someone there, even just in guidance, to show you the path. and then you can go
Yeah.
down that yourself. But just on that as well.
George, by the way, sorry.
Yeah.
Before the next one, wanted to say, even though I didn't have mentors, I had people that I looked up to, even at the work. So my friend, Arsos, we both respect each other. That's one thing, and we were both always working together. And then there were people who I just really looked up to, and one of those people probably is known for a lot of people as well. Tom Sjoberg from Finland. He was probably the first person at the job who I was really looking up to, as not as a mentor, because he never spent time mentoring myself, but as a person who I just was always listening, trying to be somewhat and act somewhat like he did. And yeah, that's just, it's not about the particular person who I'm talking about, but it's about someone who you can find to look up to and be to set as an example.
Of course, definitely, and I think that's a really good way that it could come from, as you say, it wasn't direct mentorship in that regard. It was someone that you looked up to. It was probably in more of a senior role within the project
Of
you were
course,
working.
of course.
So yeah, that's certainly a good thing as well. In terms of for people that are really maybe listening to this that are probably potentially involved in IT, most likely, but maybe interested in Salesforce industries and either making the path from core Salesforce or generally from another IT side of things. Who are the thought leaders that you would recommend people to reach out to, or not reach out to, but maybe see the content that they create?
Yeah, probably not all of them are reachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great question. First name that will always come to my mind is probably one of the Salesforce world celebrities, and especially SFI, is Georgi Savelyev.
Yeah.
So I think everyone knows him. I happen to know him personally. And then there are much more people. I don't want to say names and I don't want to forget anyone, but there are people who I also really like and I always track them. And it's like, it makes me happy that I know some people who I really respect, who do influence me and whose career path has also kind of made me, influenced my own thinking and my own decisions to try to be somewhat relatively like that person or comparable. So yeah, there are people, there are influencers, there are stuff like Apex Hours, Salesforce Band, right?
Yeah.
Which you probably should track, and where you can see all the great people from the Salesforce and the industries. But other than that, probably I don't want to say names, but yeah, there are people who probably don't even know that I respect them, but who I do track, and I really like everything what they're doing.
Fantastic, and I think that that's great for someone who is starting out to go to the likes of Salesforce Ben and the other pages and read through, see what's happening, and always just get more involved and find the kind of influencers, as you say, within Salesforce industries to learn more about it and more about the upgrades and what's happening within the market. So that's great. And in terms of the next aspect that I thought would be good to touch upon is with regards to the future outlook for SFI. I know that they're bringing in a lot of upgrades for SFI and have done throughout the years, which of course you've obviously seen. In terms of upgrades, what have been the ones which have most benefited you within your projects? And is there other ones that are maybe coming or ones that are just starting at the moment, which you would want to work on going forward?
Yeah, that's interesting. They are very active with the upgrades, and they probably can predict most expected things from the community and from the clients. So I do like their direction, but there was always this problem with Vlocity SPI that whatever they do, whatever they deliver, is far from being perfect and bulletproof or flawless. we always end up finding some bugs and stuff like that. It's inevitable and probably will stay the same, but there is a lot of stuff that is currently in development or in rolling out phase. Things like CPQ Next. I was fortunate to hear the presentation when I was working at Salesforce from the man himself who was in the lead of entire CPQ Next development, Karim. That's one very great and expected thing which will improve a lot about working with CPQ, with products and digital commerce. There are things that they are improving with CPQ engine, with your usual CPQ engine, that I look forward to. Performance improvement, limitations improvement, the way how the memory, the runtime memory operates and caching operates. There's a lot of interesting things going on. There is not just your usual CPQ, which requires improvements. There is also ESM CPQ, which they also work on very heavily, because right now across Europe there are many clients who utilize ESM. I think I started ESM also as one of the first projects in Europe, but right now I know at least 4 projects who utilize ESM, and that's quite a demanding area for SFI themselves to deliver. So they focus on that as well, and they probably they do, and they think of a lot of quality of life improvements, even stuff like ability to do MACD right on the ESM card, ability to do bulk update of the products. And I'm being a bit technical right now, sorry for that, guys, but ability to work with multiple sites, members, subscriptions, and stuff like that. It's all getting worked on and improved all the time. And also things that I look forward to is any improvement to order management, because Velocity order management is a powerful tool until you know that other order managements also do exist. So as I'm an advocate of SFI, I do wish that they have all the best software all the time, but there is always improvements needed for order management, which is a very important tool for every project, probably, especially every telco, and everything that they try to deliver there and improve. I always look forward to. So yeah, I can just say that Salesforce acquisition played out well and benefited SFI for sure. Right now, we see a lot of quality of life of developers and development teams improvements, which also result obviously in quality of software that an end client will use. I don't know. There's not something particular. I just can tell that I'm happy with their direction. There is a lot of complaints always. There is a lot of disappointments, but also they're doing the right thing as much as they can. That's what I think. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's great, and good summarization of where things are at. In terms of another one, which I felt would be interesting, I know that you are now someone who yourself takes interviews with prospect candidates. What would you say is necessary SFI package knowledge for specialists to gain?
Yeah, this is my favorite topic. So right now, what you probably will see on the market with your common SFI developer, as terms of their knowledge, you probably can guess is Omni Studio. I'd say probably 80% of the people either start or know Omni Studio. But that is probably, in my view, the least relevant area of Salesforce industries, because Omni Studio is not industry specific. Yeah, it allows you to build industry specific solutions. It allows you to build integrations, guided journeys, whatever you can probably imagine. It relatively replaces or can replace you the Lightning Web components and flows, but still, it is just a development framework that allows you to automate screens and background processes. It doesn't have any pre-built industry-specific solutions. So even though it's the most common knowledge, it's least relevant. That's what I really believe. And when I see or hear that here is another Omni Studio developer, I do think that, yeah, again, the most common knowledge, we got thousands of people like that. It's not to say that those people are doing something wrong or that they are in any way incorrect or anything like that. No, I don't want to sound like that, but it is to say that, okay, they have started with it. They can consider it probably as the prerequisite, is 100% prerequisite for actual knowledge in Vlocity, which is industry-specific solutions, which are EPC, your enterprise product catalog, product configuration, and in design time, your building of your product bundles and product-based solutions for a project, for a customer, for a company. It is an industry-specific activity. CPQ is another tool and engine and graphical interface at the same time, which serves a huge part of probably any SFI project right now, and it's the most industry-specific solution that Vlocity provides you. And order management, which is an integration, provisioning, fulfillment, whatever it is, downstream automation tool that allows you to build the end-to-end ecosystem based on Vlocity, or starting from Salesforce. That's a better way to put it. Ecosystem that will originate from Salesforce and provide everything and link the connections to the downstream systems to build and close the end-to-end ecosystem loop. So those three, I'd say, are the most relevant. And if the candidate, for example, who I'm interviewing, does have those as a knowledge or an experience, it's a huge benefit, and it's probably something that I look to all the time as my own prerequisite for candidates. So it's like, all right, learn Omni Studio. It's probably something that everyone needs to know if you work with SFI, because a lot is revolving around that. But also do focus and read on your own the industry-specific solutions, which is Vlocity is built for, and how it is called right now the name reflects it all. It is an industry-specific framework which provides you industry-specific solutions, which you need to know and which you need to learn. Because an Omni Studio, what it is, you can learn that relatively fast without going into deep stuff like asynchronous processing of separated queued integration procedures and best practices for not putting more than 3 queries in the data raptor, because each of the query in the DR consecutively use the previous query resources exponentially. It's like, all right, this is good knowledge, but this is your usual development things that probably everyone eventually will know and will not be very valued, because it doesn't provide you something that every project looks for, industry-specific solutions. So this is my little rant on the areas of SFI, which I think we do miss on the market right now in terms of newcomers.
Yeah.
But of course, every experienced and successful Salesforce industries person has those areas as their main experience, probably. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's really good insight to provide to people who are maybe listening or watching this, and they're going into interviews, they're looking to get maybe even into Salesforce industries, or they are someone with a little bit of experience but are looking to gain more experience in joining your project. So I think that's a very interesting point from your perspective as someone who's doing these interviews in terms of what you look for. So I think that's certainly great knowledge for people to have.
Yeah, for sure. I will be happy overall. I will be more happy overall with the community if more and more people coming into SFI will prioritize those aspects over Omni Studio. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Let's see if it will ever happen.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But lastly, from my side, I would say, with a view to continuing this series with more Salesforce industry specialists, can you recommend anyone who we should look to speak with regarding their career path and insights into SFI.
Oh, I literally throw a lot of names here in this podcast, right? So why not do it again? It is my friend Artyom Slivenskis. Not too many people know him these days, but he's one of the best experts who I know who started at the same time as I did. And he is an exceptional person who is not very very social these days across LinkedIn and the platforms and that stuff, but he's like a gem in this entire SFI ecosystem. So if you would be able to get hold of him, that would be great. And I will let him know that I told that, but I don't want to really speak for the man himself. So maybe what I'm saying right now will never happen. So let's see.
Yeah, it would definitely be an interesting one. I know we've worked with Art Drums before as well. So yeah, it would certainly be an interesting one. And I know he has been one of, similar to yourself, one of the long-standing people that have been in this market, and pretty much from the start, at least in Europe's tech context, from one of the big projects at the beginning. So yeah, I would think it would be a very good and very interesting conversation as well. Yeah. Especially with himself moving over to another continent, and what challenges and differences he's seen. So yeah, that's fantastic. So look, thanks a lot.
Well, Josh, if you still have like 5 minutes, do you?
Yeah.
There's one point that I wanted to ask you and maybe have like a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the current market? And it was not planned, but
okay,
I really want to discuss this point a little bit myself and hear that from Josh. Is like, what are your current views at the market of SFI, contracting market of SFI, European hiring, European projects, SFI market view, basically considering the current economy situation, considering the war, considering the COVID has just ended not that long ago, considering that we do know it's a fact that IT businesses do struggle right now.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Definitely, I think it's a very fair point, and I think everyone really knows that the market hasn't been where it was previously, maybe a year, 2 years ago, when I think there was a little bit of a boom, almost just after COVID had first hit a few months later. Then the market was really busy, everything had changed to remote working, and you've seen a lot of companies ramping up in terms of their hiring.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. That hurts me, really.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's the way that things probably started, and so many companies were hiring. Salesforce Industries was getting bigger, and generally, of course, there's been a lot of layoffs now at Salesforce and IT in general, where maybe some companies had potentially overhired during that previous period.
For sure. During COVID, when everyone became started working as much as you can from home, and IT really has boomed.
Yeah,
it has really boomed.
Yeah, definitely. So I think after a boom, there's normally an inevitable slight downfall. So I think it has been slower. For where I see Salesforce Industries specifically, so I'm still speaking with a lot of clients regarding the project, regarding their hiring. I would say at the moment we're maybe going to see some really big implementations starting soon that potentially have been pushed down the line a little bit in terms of when those projects are really going to kick off and start ramping up the hiring, which is exciting for when it will be coming, but potentially as part of the uncertainty with obviously war and the recession at the moment within the world, that projects are maybe not wanting to start right now, but they should be kicking off hopefully soon. But still certainly seeing the opportunities out there within Salesforce Industries, and within all of the other sides of Salesforce that we work with as well. There is certainly still hiring there. However, it would be unfair to say that the market is tougher at the moment than what it previously has been last year, certainly, and probably the year before as well.
And you know what happens at the same time? When I started Vlocity, like when I started, it was a bit too early, but going forward like a year from there, we always were saying this thing. the demand is crazy. The demand is a lot higher than the market can supply. And it was really the strong case. The demand for Vlocity developers were probably 10 times bigger than the available supply developer chain. And right now, what happened? Everyone saw the successes of Vlocity. Everyone's seeing that there are more and more projects acquiring Salesforce together with Vlocity for different solutions, not telco, but also media, insurance, and even healthcare and this stuff. And also, there is a lot more people available right now on the market. There are so many junior Vlocity guys. There are so many middle level and overall new developers coming into the market that it is really crazy. So I do think that we have passed the line where the demand is not any higher right now than the supply. And I'm of course speaking of a good people who fit the requirements of companies who are looking. So this is like, all right, the economy market struggles. There is war and this stuff, the decline in the stock of IT companies. And at the same time, in terms of SFI, heads, SFI people who are starting or a little bit into SFI development experience, there are so many of those people right now. So I do think that it is good for the companies and for projects, because right now we all can find developers relatively easily, but still overall market struggles right now, and I do hope that it becomes better and improves. And one thing for sure is that you cannot, and you still cannot find a lot of knowledgeable and experienced industry knowledge specific people. Like you know all these examples when companies do search for example, order management architect with relocations with specific language, or another type of architect, or a very specific knowledge person, or stuff like that. And those, there are not so many. But whereas you can easily find an only studio developer for sure all the time right now. So I think it's very interesting. It would be very interesting to hear any other opinions on that, because these are just my improvisational thoughts. And sorry guys if I'm hijacking the time, but a bit of an improvised topic on the situation on the market, because probably the people who watch us, they would like to know that stuff. But still, if someone would ask me, hey Richard, would you recommend me starting learning Salesforce Vlocity? I would definitely say so. Salesforce together with Vlocity. I do see new projects in Europe. I don't know so much about other markets like American and stuff, but I do see that it evolves. It still evolves in Europe. There are new projects, there are new industries and domains that picking up Salesforce and Vlocity licenses. There is, like, for example, Dubai that is growing right now in terms of Vlocity. And I personally know, and I can always count that there are new starting ongoing projects going on, even though still the market situation is tough, a little bit tougher than it was years before. So, just wanted to mention this thing.
Definitely. And I think from my side as well, speaking with a lot of customers, that, as you said, there is a lot more different industries which are really starting to ramp up with their use of Salesforce industries, particularly media. It's getting used a lot in health, within insurance in terms of the health cloud side of things. Seen some automotive companies potentially using it now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And there's a lot of different new industry verticals, and a lot of, I know on my studio, particularly being utilised in these projects, at least at the moment. So it's certainly good to see that. And speaking with a lot of customers about big implementations which could be coming up, and should be coming up in the next few months, I would certainly imagine the marketplace to become stronger. And yeah, overall, I think without a doubt, what you say, it's a very good skill to learn, Salesforce and Vlocity, and I think it's definitely a great career path to go down.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your thoughts as well on this.
Fantastic. So, is there anything else from your side at the moment, Richard?
No, maybe we can do it again at some point in the future if we'll get some interesting ideas. I'm looking forward to see who else you will get on this podcast. It should be very interesting. I'm a fan of this. And the world is small in terms of people who we can really get hold of into such actions like this podcast or any other in the in this world in Salesforce industries. But yeah, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, and we will definitely do that soon on any other matter. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Obviously, thanks so much for your time. First of all, Richard, always a pleasure to speak, as always. And yeah, it would certainly be great to do it again in the future, see where things have changed in the market and where things are at now. But yeah, like thanks again, and speak soon.